The key turned in the lock, and I wearily pushed the door open, expecting the familiar warmth of our home. Instead, I was met with the scent of unfamiliar cooking and the sight of my in-laws settled in our living room. Confusion clawed at me as I dropped my bags, my gaze darting between the surprised faces of my husband and his parents. "What's going on?" I stammered, my eyes narrowing at my husband, who seemed oddly composed. With a forced smile, he gestured towards his parents. "Surprise! Mom and Dad are going to be staying with us from now on." I blinked, unable to process the suddenness of this declaration. "Staying? You didn't think to discuss this with me?" My mother-in-law chimed in, her voice apologetic but lacking sincerity. "I'm sorry to bother you, dear. Your husband thought it was best for us to move in." Frustration and disbelief bubbled within me. "Best for us? You mean best for you?" My husband attempted to pacify me. "They need our support, and we have the space. It'll be good for family bonding." "Family bonding?" I shot back. "How about marital bonding? Did you even consider how I feel about this?" His nonchalant demeanor grated on my nerves. "It'll be fine, trust me." "Trust you?" I retorted, my voice escalating. "You've just turned our home into a boarding house without consulting me. This is not okay." As the words hung in the air, the weight of the unexpected living arrangement settled in, casting a shadow over the foundation of our marriage. My eyes darted between my husband and his parents, searching for an explanation that could rationalize the intrusion into our once private sanctuary. The tension in the room thickened, and I could feel a growing sense of betrayal. "What is this, John?" I demanded, my voice edged with a mix of anger and disbelief. My husband, seemingly oblivious to the storm he had unleashed, offered a half-hearted smile. "Surprise, sweetheart. I thought it was time for Mom and Dad to move in with us." I took a step back, my hands clenching into fists. "Move in? You decide this without discussing it with me? This is our home, not a family hostel." His response was infuriatingly casual. "They need our help, and we have the space. It just makes sense." My gaze shifted to his parents, who observed the unfolding drama with a blend of discomfort and detachment. "Sense? It makes no sense at all," I shot back, my frustration mounting. "You can't just upend our lives without talking to me first." My mother-in-law attempted to intervene. "I'm sorry, dear. Your husband thought it was the best decision for all of us." I glared at her, incredulous. "Best for all of us? Did anyone consider what I might think about this? My opinion matters too." My husband, seemingly unfazed by my escalating emotions, said, "We're a family. We should support each other. It'll be great having everyone under one roof." The audacity of his decision left me seething. Support? What about supporting your spouse? This isn't a family decision. It's a dictatorship. As the realization set in that my husband had made such a life-altering choice without consulting me, the foundations of our marriage trembled, and the trust that once bound us began to crack. As the shock of my in-laws' sudden arrival lingered in the air, another storm brewed beneath the surface, our financial disagreements. The harmony we once shared in managing our finances had evaporated, replaced by the acrid scent of discontent. I confronted John in our kitchen, frustration etching lines on my face. "John, we need to talk about our finances. I can't believe you made such a big decision without consulting me." He looked at me with an air of nonchalance. "It's not a big deal. We'll adjust, and everyone will be fine." I took a deep breath, struggling to contain my exasperation. "John, we're already struggling to make ends meet. Your parents moving in just adds more strain. Did you even think about the financial impact?" His dismissive tone grated on my nerves. "We have the space, and they're family. We'll figure it out." "But what about our budget? Our plans?" I insisted, feeling the weight of responsibility for our financial stability. John waved off my concerns. "We'll manage. Besides, I need some support with them around." "Support?" I scoffed. "I'm working part-time to help with expenses, and you're making unilateral decisions that affect our finances. It's not fair." He sighed, as if my concerns were trivial. "Look, we'll cut back on some things. Sacrifices need to be made for family." My frustration reached a boiling point. Sacrifices. You're not the one covering the bills, managing the budget. This affects me directly. We're supposed to be a team, but it feels like I'm shouldering this burden alone. John's response was an indifferent shrug. We'll adapt. It's temporary. The clash over our financial priorities intensified, leaving me grappling with a sense of unease. The once shared responsibility now felt like a solo act, and the strain on our relationship deepened. The tension in our home lingered, overshadowed by my husband's unilateral decisions and a growing rift in our financial harmony. As the days passed, the weight of resentment intensified, reaching a breaking point over John's extravagant spending. One evening, I confronted him in the living room, my frustration palpable. John, we need to talk about your spending habits. It's affecting our financial stability. He looked up from his latest golf catalog, seemingly unfazed. What's the big deal? I work hard. I deserve to treat myself. But we're a team, John, I retorted, desperation lacing my words. You can't just spend without considering the impact on us. We have bills to pay, responsibilities to uphold. He brushed off my concerns, his tone dismissive. Relax. It's just a hobby. I'm not asking you to spend your money on it. I clenched my fists, struggling to maintain composure. It's not just about the money. It's about respect and communication. We're supposed to make these decisions together. He waved away my words. It's not a big deal. I can handle it. Frustration bubbled within me. John, we're a team. When you make financial decisions without involving me, it undermines our partnership. I'm working hard to contribute, and I deserve a say in how our money is spent. His indifference cut through me like a knife. You're making a fuss out of nothing. I can manage my own finances. The divide between us widened as I struggled to make him understand the impact of his actions. It's not just your finances, it's our finances. We need to be on the same page. His response, void of empathy, stung. You're overreacting. I work hard, and I should enjoy the fruits of my labor. As the argument unfolded, it became clear that our financial disagreements were not just about money, but about a fundamental lack of understanding and consideration. The once shared dreams now seemed distant, and I wondered if we could bridge the growing gap between us. With the decision to have my in-laws live with us, and the financial strain exacerbating our troubles, the once harmonious walls of our home now echoed with stress and discontent. The weight of cohabitation pressed down on me, turning our shared space into a battleground. One evening, as I struggled to balance my part-time job and the additional responsibilities that came with our unexpected guests, I confronted John in the kitchen. John, we need to talk about the stress this living arrangement is causing. I can't keep up with work and managing the house with your parents here. He looked at me, seemingly oblivious to the turmoil. They're family. We'll find a way to make it work. Just give it some time. But it's not just about time, I pleaded, the exhaustion evident in my voice. I need your help. I can't do everything on my own. His response was frustratingly casual. I have my job, and you're good at managing things. We're a team, right? I shook my head, frustration bubbling to the surface. A team supports each other. I need you to share the load, especially when it comes to your parents. His eyes narrowed, defensive. They're my parents. I can't just abandon them. I'm not asking you to abandon them. I shot back, exasperated. I'm asking for us to work together, to communicate and share the responsibilities. I'm drowning here, and I need you to understand that. He sighed, seemingly uninterested in the gravity of the situation. Fine, I'll help more. But you're making a big deal out of this. As the days passed, my stress levels soared. The constant presence of my in-laws disrupted our routines, and the strain on our relationship became increasingly apparent. A breaking point loomed, and I questioned whether our home could ever regain the serenity it once held. As the days turned into weeks, and the weight of our shared space grew heavier, dissatisfaction seeped into the very fabric of our relationship. My once idyllic vision of marriage now stood tarnished, overshadowed by my husband's selfish actions and a growing sense of isolation. One evening, after a particularly taxing day, I found myself alone in our bedroom, reflecting on the state of our marriage. John entered, oblivious to the storm brewing within me. "I can't keep up with this, John," I confessed, my voice tinged with exhaustion. "Your parents, the financial strain, and your constant spending, it's all too much." He looked at me, his expression indifferent. "We're adapting, just like you wanted. But at what cost?" I asked, frustration and disappointment in my voice. "Our relationship is suffering. I feel like I'm carrying the weight of our marriage alone." He sighed, his irritation evident. "You're exaggerating. We're doing what needs to be done for family." "For family?" I echoed, incredulous. "What about us? What about our dreams and plans?" His response was dismissive. "Things change. We have responsibilities now." As the days passed, my dissatisfaction morphed into a profound sense of loneliness. Conversations grew strained, and our connection seemed to wither under the weight of unmet expectations. One evening, I confronted John, seeking understanding. "Do you even see how this is affecting us? I feel like we're drifting apart." He looked at me, his gaze distant. "It's temporary. Once things settle, we'll be fine." "But what if they don't settle?" I implored, the uncertainty gnawing at me. "What if this becomes our new normal?" He shrugged, a gesture that spoke volumes. "We'll deal with it when it happens. Stop worrying so much." The growing dissatisfaction, once a subtle undercurrent, now surged within me. The foundation of our marriage felt fragile, and I wondered if there was a way to rebuild what had been lost. As the weight of dissatisfaction bore down on our marriage, the breaking point loomed closer, casting a shadow over the remnants of what was once a happy union. The strain on our relationship reached a crescendo, leaving me with no choice but to confront the undeniable truth. One evening, the tension in our home was palpable. John entered the room, sensing the gravity of the situation. "We need to talk," I declared, my voice steady but charged with emotion. He sat down, his expression a mix of resignation and impatience. "What's there to talk about?" I took a deep breath, the words heavy on my tongue. "I can't do this anymore, John. The living arrangement, the financial strain, our constant disagreements, it's tearing us apart." He leaned back, seemingly unfazed. "We'll get through it. We just need time." "Time?" I scoffed, my frustration bubbling to the surface. "Time won't fix this. We're not on the same page, and I can't keep pretending that everything is okay." His eyes narrowed, defensive. "What do you want from me?" "I want a partner, John," I exclaimed, the desperation evident in my voice. "Someone who listens, who considers my feelings, who works with me instead of against me." He rolled his eyes, dismissive. "You're making this into a bigger deal than it is. People go through rough patches. This isn't a rough patch. It's a fundamental breakdown." I shot back, my patience wearing thin. "I can't stay in a marriage where I feel alone, where my needs are constantly ignored." Silence hung in the air, the weight of my words settling between us. The breaking point had arrived, and the choice before me was clear. "If things don't change, I can't stay," I asserted, my voice unwavering. His response was a dismissive wave of the hand. "You're overreacting. This will pass." As I left the room, the realization hit me. It was time to take control of my own happiness, even if it meant facing the difficult path of separation. The breaking point had become a pivotal moment, forcing me to reassess what I needed from life and love. In the aftermath of our tumultuous confrontation, the consequences of our choices unfolded with a relentless force, reshaping the landscape of our lives. The decision to divorce had been made, and the aftermath rippled through the remnants of our fractured relationship. One day, as the divorce proceedings commenced, John and I faced each other in a lawyer's office, the air thick with tension. "Is this really what you want?" he asked, his tone a blend of resignation and defiance. I met his gaze, my resolve unwavering. "It's what needs to happen. We can't keep pretending that everything is okay." His expression remained stoic, a facade that barely masked the storm within. "You're being hasty. We can work through this." I shook my head, exhaustion etched into my features. "We've tried, John. It's time to accept that we want different things." As the divorce papers were submitted without incident, the reality of our separation became undeniable. It was a painful process, an unraveling of shared dreams and promises made in the glow of happier times. In the following weeks, the consequences of our choices unfolded in unexpected ways. A mutual acquaintance shared snippets of John's life post-divorce. He quit his job, they mentioned, as if the revelation held some hidden significance. Curiosity propelled me to reach out to John, seeking to understand the changes. "Why did you quit your job?" I asked over the phone, the awkwardness of our conversation palpable. A heavy sigh emanated from the other end. "My parents need more care, especially after I left my job. It's a challenging situation." The weight of his responsibilities and the consequences of our fractured marriage seemed to be taking a toll on him. Yet, I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of sympathy and detachment. As our conversation unfolded, I couldn't help but wondered if our choices had led to a cascade of events that neither of us had anticipated. The consequences of our decisions became threads, weaving a narrative of change and adaptation, with the echoes of our past continuing to resonate in the present.